And this is how we designed it. Like we wanted this to go very till here because it's where so many, and also because no one is gonna come in. So I think it's something to do with this.
So now mute yourself, Serge. Ooh, smile. Remember to smile.
You can feel what's on it.
Restart.
I haven't finished.
I enjoyed it.
And you're just gonna restart. Turn it off and on again.
Qué miedo.
Why did you guys watch the director They Call Me By Your Name, the one on BBC?
Okay, that's great. Thank you so much.
I didn't like it, that was...
What HBO?
The name?
It was HBO, but it was on
Okay.
BBC.
We Are Who You.
Yeah, we are.
Che io questi sono le gambe.
I look around and see, scattered on the floor, all these objects now composing this still life depicting me at this specific moment. The days that pass by bring with them these accidental sculptures that keep forming and dissolving themselves. Everything moves, all the time. The room never becomes anything else than a construction site, evolving towards no goal, if not the one to reflect my interiority. I told myself several times that I should tidy my room, but never found a methodology that would suit me. As soon as I was trying to assign an object to a certain location, I was destroying the possibility for it to be somewhere else. As soon as I was building a methodology of tidying, the construction site ceased existing, and it was over. My room, my interiority, wasn't any more a reflection of my changing self, but a fixed state of things from which nothing could ever emanate. As I lay by the rug, only fixed territory of the room, unalterable frame in which life passes by, I realize that I am not only this still life at this specific moment, but rather the accumulation of every state of the room. I realize that I am the objects around me and their past, their movement in space, their traces, that I am, as Isamu Noguchi would say, the landscape of all I have seen.
Hi all, welcome into our commentary video, Bird's Eye versus Eye Level View. And we are Cinzia and Angelina, and today we are going to present our projects, and we're gonna try to also introduce you to our methodologies and techniques we used to develop our short documentary.
Hello, I'm Angelina. I am a graphic and information designer based in Athens, Greece. And I made the documentary, maybe also essay film, Monopoly.
My name is Cinzia Bongino. I am a graphic and information web designer and a bit of everything, basically. I am based now in Italy, in Torino. And my short documentary is The Weapons Reputation, and it's an investigation into the geopolitics of arms trade. And it's basically a short documentary that tries to question the integrity of the arms trade as a legal transfer of weapons. And it does so by using 3 weapons to represent which countries are actually involved into a very local conflict as the Yemeni civil war, which is still ongoing. And the first question is, why did you choose this topic, Angelina? And how did you conduct the research?
I chose this topic because I had already researched the privatizations of large public companies in Greece for another project. And the Port of Piraeus, which is the main topic of Monopoly, was presented as a kind of a very successful privatization by the local media, which is something that was not visible to me whenever I visited Piraeus. So I was very interested into finding which, for whom this success was for.
Oh yeah.
And you, why did you choose your topic?
Yeah, I don't have actually any relations with weapons or arms or conflict. I just had the occasion in 2019 to participating into kind of boot camp, a very intense workshop with some Dutch journalists in Belgium, in which we tracked arms, European arms, and how they were exported to European and non-European states, and how they were actually used in a conflict situation. This bootcamp, this workshop wasn't a single workshop, it was part of a bigger project, which is called the EU Arms. And it has already happened in several countries like Italy, Germany, UK, France, etc. And the 14 days that I spent there, and I learned much, very much. So I thought that it was a topic that was not that close to the general audience. So I try to bridge this gap with this kind of short film and an accompanying database, which is available online.
And how did you find this? So you found the database of weapons in this workshop, but how did you?
Yeah,
no?
Not really in the workshop, because there are available some databases online. It's not like information that we invented or we found through like secret advisors or people. No, these big databases on how weapons are sold and transferring among countries are available online, like CIPRI and other small European ones. And these data are all based on some public reports that each nation, each state should publish yearly. The problem of these reports is that they are not so transparent because sometimes they hide the information, they don't show it completely. So it's something that both exists and both you also have to reconstruct, cross-checking information between the official figures and then some local news in which instead they report another data set or another figures. So it's kind of balance in between. And
but the database was very important.
No, for sure. I mean, without it, it would have been a very difficult way to present this kind of storyline and to prove the various connections among the states. So for sure it was an essential element.
And would you have attempted to do this project if the database wasn't exactly as it was, or if it wasn't there? Would you have tried to approach it in a different way?
I agree, and I mean I agree as a question, but I know that probably I wouldn't be able to build it as I have done in this work, because it's basically a fact-based story, and it's since I'm no one, I was just graduating like a designer that was graduating with a project. So if I didn't have this kind of textual visual evidence, which were also proved by bigger news media or other organizations that take care of these kind of topics and matters, probably it would have been a complete another outcome, which maybe it was as well like understandable and still good to follow, etc. But maybe it was not as consistent as how it is today. And but I don't want to say with this that if a documentary is not fact-based, it does not represent numbers, it is not a documentary, because of course in your case you adopted a complete another approach, don't you?
Yes, but I was really aiming for your approach as well, and I didn't manage to find these facts. So that's why I want to talk with you also about different approaches and how it is to create this kind of thing with little facts, basically.
Yeah. But I don't think that they are the main thing, because like in your case, in your documentary, you definitely use another kind of information, like you entered in contact with local workers, with a local organization, with people, and you also gathered the information that was very fragmented. So I think it's also interesting, your approach, because you built kind of your own story on data that were not so sure. So
yes, but yeah, I think both have a different value. Both approaches have different value, and they both have they address different gaps in understanding information, I think. And yeah, for me, it was more of a situation where I had some sources that were confirming me some of what was happening, but they didn't want to be on camera. So I didn't have their testimonies either. And so it was definitely very interesting to try to go around the problems that kept occurring, and the fact that the data was not collected and the transactions were not transparent, not a lot of journalistic research existed, because this is also information that if you don't have this, it makes people wonder, where is this? And why isn't there such a data available to me about this? And people were asking this question when I was screening the film as well. And it made me very happy, because I think it's the kind of thing that we should demand from people, from decision makers, basically.
yeah, definitely. I agree. And to connect to your last sentence, it's what I found very nice is that in your work, in your video, I don't only see this recording of the story of like a very footage recorded on field, but I also see the after of the movie, because you put the registration of the audience when they first were attending this screening. So at the very end, we hear also the last thoughts, which is like a post process that I found fascinating, because in the first place I can relate to them, because I might also start a conversation with others that are also watching your work. But then it is also a testimony, which a memory, like something that becomes part of your documentation as well. And I think it's a very nice double level. And to talk also about your techniques as well, another thing that I found very interesting is that you use this split screen. We almost always see two different videos happening at the same time. So I wonder, what does this mean, and why is it relevant in your documentary?
I used the split screen because visually this place, I think it has two representations in most, at least Greek citizens or any citizen that might visit it or watch Greek television, and this is the representation it has on the news, and the whatever it is that you gather with your own eyes whenever you're there, because it's a place that people visit often for work or travel. And I try to split these images in an attempt to show that there is not a huge difference between what the news is showing actually and what I see there, but the huge difference is in what the news is telling, because it's laying out this visual with a very tense language. So it was a way to highlight a little bit this kind of channel of information.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it's interesting because, of course, the all information are written and spoken in Greek, so it's a very local perspective, but I think it can really be a nice way to enter into the situation also from a non-Greek perspective. So it intrigued me a lot.
Oh, that's good to hear. And in your technique was for me very clear. It was really making it transparent your research methods, which I really appreciated. And is this why you chose it?
Yeah, actually, that you mentioned it, yes, because like while I was reflecting on it, basically it's like the video translation of the research that I've done for the thesis, because also the thesis book, it's structured with these 3 chapters and these 3 analyses of weapons fragments. As I said, for me, it was very important to include these 3 objects because each of them was representing a country or multiple countries, and was a way to express, to show how many actors are actually involved in a conflict that is happening in the Middle East. And a very brief history moment, like the conflict in Yemen is started in the very end of 2014, beginning of 2015, and it's still ongoing. It's a very local clash between 2 oppositions, which basically don't agree on religion-wise and politics and way of governing the country. But the problem is that it's also it is defined as a proxy war between Iran and Saudi Arabia because they both have an interest in the region, in the area, because it's very rich of oil and it's a very good connection with the rest of the countries through the ports. And it's a war that is fought with weapons that are not made locally, but of course they are bought by other countries. So the whole point of this work is posing the question on who has the responsibility of the continuation of this war, because of course the results are all on the population. And for going back to the question on why it has these structures, it is the form basically represent an investigation. So with these 3 case studies, I present you evidences, and then at the end there is a conclusion which does not give a singular and conclusive answer, but it presents the actual state of the situation, in which that is like a very worldwide problems. And the situation is that the arms trade is not regulated enough to avoid these kind of problems on the civilian population.
Yes, it's very clear also from your field.
Good, because it's a lot in 17 minutes actually.
Oh, and well, since we're talking about the techniques and the footage, and why did you choose to not have a narrator?
Actually, for me, the first version of the video, the first attempt was had a narrator, in which it was basically my voice that was presenting the story, etc. But then later I realized that it was maybe not too personal, but not the right way to expose my findings. To connect to what I was saying in the beginning, since it's a fact-based story, and I am not really so, I don't have so much experience in the field, I decided to trust the sources that I have found and use them as the voice of my work, which means that the main audio that you listen is the audio of news media and videos that I have collected mainly on YouTube. And then you have a textual part, which is both text made by me and both text extracted from my findings. So it doesn't have a narrator, but you construct a narration on your own. It's almost like if you find findings, like things, and then you follow one by one, and then you end up with a storyline, basically. Yeah, but I think that my approach is the complete opposite.
Yes, but exactly for the same reasons. Like you say, that the material guides you in a way on how to use it. For me, the material was the voices, so I had to find a way to give them some space to be a story instead of being a 6-hour long conversation. And it was exactly the same as with you, like in a way that I was kind of honoring my sources, because my sources were voices, so I added one more voice instead of only the text.
Yeah, but I think it is also nice that it's in Greek, the main voiceover, and nice that you have also these interviews as well. Also because you recorded on the field. I mean, you actually shoot the images, the visual that we are seeing. Was it difficult to going so close to the port, to enter in contact with the locals?
Well, first of all, I have to say that thank God George Gunezos helped me to film, because it's impossible to do it alone. Especially if you are getting an interview from someone. I don't think a lot of these shots would not have happened if he wasn't there with me. And yeah, I think it was not so difficult to speak with people that wanted to speak, but it was extremely difficult, and it actually didn't work for me to go inside the working area. I mean, I was kicked out of there 3 times, I think. So yeah, some parts were difficult and some parts were easier. Yeah, it was a bit fun.
No, of course, because then the images are really yours. I mean, in my case, of course, I didn't shoot one single video that you see. As I said, I have collected it online, but I also used like Google Earth. I just use tools that are available to everyone. So when for the last part, advice for future documentary makers, like
yes.
if you want to do it alone, well, good luck.
Yes, exactly. So how has the situation changed in 2021 for your story?
Well, I think that for the Yemeni population, nothing has basically changed, unfortunately. But for the international audience, this topic and the conflict is more known than 2019. And this happened because of the several news articles published in the last few years with this matter, and the public more public attention towards the topic, which helped to change government policies and to force the state actors to be more aware of the arms exports. Like to mention a few, for example, UK has banned any exports towards Saudi Arabia, and the same happened with Germany, mainly after the killing of Jamal Khashoggi. Italy has recently revoked a selling of more than 12,000 of bombs to Saudi Arabia and United Arab Emirates, which is very good. But we have to remember, to keep in mind that it's like maybe the headlines say, okay, ban towards arms export and blah, blah, blah. But the problem of this kind of trade is that not always it's so easy to label a weapon, because maybe they are split in different components, which if you, for example, just sell an helicopter, which is can be helpful for rescuing civilians or for transport or whatever, but then separate, you sell like a gun or you sell separately a gun or a turret or any other items to shoot to another countries, which this third country then resell it to Saudi Arabia, and then Saudi Arabia is able to assemble the machine gun or any kind of weapons system, then you are back to the main problem that you still arm these countries and you didn't really stop the killings of civilians or any other problems occurred. So it is essential that every nation controls very deeply and carefully each export. And yeah, I think this is the main change for me. It's been like years that people and analysts and people that work in the topic have said and repeat this. The problem is that every weapon is sold with a license, and this license happened 1 or 2 or 3 years before. Then you have the time span of production, which can take up to 10 years, maybe if you have to build a fighter jet. So it means that maybe an airplane, fighter jet that is gonna be delivered tomorrow has a license that has been sold, bought, and agreed 20 years ago. So how do you stop this? Because this also means that you cut jobs, you stop the production, then you have all the suppliers. So it's a very, very big machine.
Yeah.
And no, actually, like in Greece, our the activists and the organization that you interviewed, how they are doing it now?
They are still active in a way. I mean, the dog has progressed a lot, but they are still fighting so that it doesn't get completed. But a lot of damage has already been done. There were a lot of protests in the summer. It's very strange right now, the fact that with COVID-19 there is no cruise. Basically, the cruise industry has suffered a huge blow. So it's a bit unclear what will happen. How is this dock going to be used? Because the existing cruise dock is being used as a car terminal, which is new. And the worker situation has not changed. In fact, the last thing I heard was that they were called to testify by the Greek police because of a strike that called for a small demonstration, let's say. And they said that this was violating COVID regulations, but it's very unclear which exactly are the COVID regulations for the port, because I think that the dock workers go to work normally, wearing masks possibly, but I don't think that they work from home.
No.
So it's a bit blurry right now what this is exactly. But yeah, it's just moved on as was expected.
Yeah, and do you know if the larger Greek population is aware of the real consequences of this new dock and ownership of the Chinese ownership of the port? Or, of course, it's nothing too big for them that they can't really.
Yeah, I mean, everyone knows that it has changed, but I think that there were some people that were interested in it. In the summer, in some protests, there was a big turnout, but now with all this turmoil that is going on in the Greek society, I think that everybody's choosing their battles differently. Many people didn't care about it from the beginning, and everybody considers this a lot of people think that this has been done, so it's done. What's done is done. Kind of. For now, at least, I think this is the sentiment.
Yeah. And this is what happens when you try to do a documentary on something that is too big for you. Like too big, like it's such a big matter that you cannot really do anything about reporting the matters in somehow.
Yes, but I mean, I also joined the protest. So
that's good. That's good.
Yes, and the way that my film was made was also as a way to help question things and gather information. So I screened it outdoors and to try and get some of the neighbors to also look at this whole thing from a different perspective. And actually, after the first lockdown, I think that people responded very positively to it, because everybody needed to socialize in a way to maybe connect with other people and try for something better for their health, for the neighborhood. But right now, I think this kind of thing is not going to happen again very soon. Should we, do you have some advice to give to future documentary makers from this experience that you gained?
Wow. Well, if you want it, you can do it at the end. So it's just a matter of effort, of your own effort. The main characteristic of our work is that we basically conduct it alone, which is not what happens usually in a normal, let's say, documentary making situation, because of course there is like a bigger team, there are more professionals involved, everything acquire more like a higher level of expertise involved in somehow. But this doesn't mean that our work has less value in somehow, because of course we did not, you didn't interview like one of the main manager of Costco. I didn't go to Yemen in person. I think it's like gathering information in your home and then trying to present them. It's still a good way to make a documentary. And I think my only advice is to respect this kind of material that you gather, and it's not that you have to do like a 20 minutes film, a 30 minute film, or whatever. It can also be maybe 5 minutes, but as long as you are able to communicate a problem and to present what you've gathered in the best way possible.
Yeah, it's important.
But do you think that, for example, if someone tells you something that asks not to be recorded, but then you aggregate this information without, of course, mentioning the name, you can presenting and as like information gathered while conducting interviews, etc. Do you think that you can do it, or still it's not that legal? Or
I think that it of course it depends, but you have to always respect the person, because you don't have the same things at stake that they do, and they know why they ask you not to broadcast something. They know what the personal cost would be. And in my case, for example, I had a lot of unofficial talks with different people that I never managed to convince them to come on the record, even if we wouldn't specifically discuss one specific incident that they didn't want to say that they have witnessed. They didn't want to come forward at all. And this made me figure out a different solution, which I ended up making a film that asks more questions than it answers. Yeah, the people are not your project.
Yeah,
this is very important. They are not your project. This is not something that it's something that people should never forget.
Yeah, I think it's a good sentence also to close this video as well.
Yes. Okay. So yes, thank you for watching.
We hope that you enjoyed, and if you want to know more, you can just go on movingstasis.com. You look for our names and then you have everything. And if you want to contact us, please do it. We are always very happy to talk about it and to have new inputs back, whatever.
Yes, please.
Bye.
Bye.
I think it's something to do with it.
So now mute yourself, Serge.
Ooh, smile. Remember to smile.
You can feel
have
what's
to
in it.
restart. I haven't finished.
I enjoyed it.
And you're just gonna restart. Turn it off and on again.
Okay. Uf, qué miedo.
Recuerdo. Recuerdo los veranos en la playa con mis abuelos. Recuerdo cómo se enfadaba Saturnina porque no la llamaba abuela. Recuerdo viejos, muchos viejos cuando yo era niño. Y recuerdo lo fría que estaba la crema solar en lo bajo de la espalda. Recuerdo cavar hoyos en la arena para enterrar medusas. Y recuerdo ir a la caseta de la Cruz Roja a que me curaran las picadas de medusa. Recuerdo cómo Saturnina me llamaba mi tesoro. ¡Ay, mi tesoro, pero qué guapo que es! ¡Ay, mi tesoro, pero qué le ha picado una medusa! Recuerdo construir castillos de arena con arena mojada y que parecieran montañas de tierra. Recuerdo cómo se disgustó una vecina cuando me vio enterrado bajo la montaña de arena. Recuerdo cómo sonaba la carretera que pasaba al lado de casa de mis abuelos. Recuerdo cerrar los ojos y contar los coches como si fueran ovejas. Recuerdo chuparme el brazo y sentir el agua del mar. Y recuerdo en un poste de la carretera un ramo de flores atado. Recuerdo ser un pirata y buscar entre los cajones un tesoro. Recuerdo 7 nombres en la documentos. Recuerdo encontrar en un cajón recogida de firmas para la exhumación de 7 cuerpos en la carretera. Recuerdo en los ronquidos de Saturnina durante la hora de la siesta.
Darle una sepultura digna. La larga
Recuerdo a mis
búsqueda,
abuelos durmiendo la
darle
siesta con el
un
telediario de fondo. Recuerdo los encuentros
de España están las muertes de mi mundo. Recuerdo una alegría para todos, una alegría para todos. Recuerdo se termina el apagando la vela y se termina el tiroteo. Y esto lo saben hasta las mierdas.
promover la recuperación de la memoria histórica de los desaparecidos durante la Guerra Civil y la posguerra.
Soft rubble is a textile construction system that positions building waste as building material. It consists of a series of 3-meter-tall bags that can be filled and emptied repeatedly to form rigid stone walls and produce a variety of spatial configurations. With soft rubble, I'm looking into how one can start building with something that so obviously reads as the end of a building. Building rubble, so mixed concrete, brick and stone, is one of the world's largest waste streams to date, which is usually downcycled to fill a material in the backfilling of quarries or building of roads. This means that essentially the same kind of matter that is previously extracted from the natural landscape as clay or sand returns to the same landscape in the form of waste. This way, the natural landscape we quarry turns into a landscape that stays untouched. What makes us quarry one landscape while we leave untouched this other, new man-made landscape? And how could we begin to see the same value in man-made material conglomerates that we see in natural raw matter? Global extraction industries look at quarrying as the retrieval of valuable raw matter from the natural landscape. However, this matter has not always been valuable. Take clay, for example. It took someone millennia ago to accidentally leave an odd sticky lump of mud close to the fire and see that it turns firm. With this observation came techniques of forming clay to vessels and to bricks, and with these objects came culture of eating from vessels and building with bricks. In this initial sense, quarrying is a cultural practice of developing value to the useless found matter through knowledge production, development of technique to create objects and integrate these through usage into the local culture. If you look at it from this angle, nature taught us to observe matter and its behavior, to see and create cultural value around it. Now, as landscapes change and are more and more permeated with human interference and alteration, this ability of quarrying, of creating value, can help us develop techniques of forming new man-made kinds of matter, such as building rubble into a next generation of objects, form language and cultural narrative, even if this matter at first sight seems as ugly and odd as a sticky lump of mud or a blob-shaped bag of rubble.
In times when the World Wide Web is as intense and seductive as it is today, when you love to bathe in information euphoria and flood your brain with all kinds of digital input, the equation is simple. The more skimming and multitasking you do, the faster you exhaust the capacity of your focus. Your attention span is decreasing, you are unlearning to deeply engage with content, and you feel exhausted by the oversupply of stimuli. So instead of constantly searching for more and more information and getting completely lost in all the data, the idea of the Attention Lab is to look back at what you've already found interesting. Imagine a program that uses eye tracking techniques to identify your highest cognitive response while interacting with your laptop. It would be able to understand exactly where your gaze touches the screen. A quick, jerky saccadic fixation of your gaze on a small area of the screen reveals high personal interest. The program would not only collect these visual moments that caught your strongest attention, but it would also be able to document their intensity by measuring the length and also the dynamics of your gaze. And imagine if you could experience these insights by stepping into your own personal digital mind landscape, a place where you could reflect, deepen, and reopen your attention by simply taking a digital walk through your thoughts. 1. Reflect. The fragments are arranged in a chronological time of day scale to show the moments when they were taken. Go back in time and explore your focus of attention. By zooming out, you can read the rhythm of your focus. And by zooming in, you can explore its content. By comparing the rhythm between days, can you develop a sense of your attentional rhythm? 2. Deepen. Click on the fragments you want to explore further and resonate with them. The content constructs and deconstructs itself along the original gaze path to trigger thoughts from that moment and give space for your perspective. What are your thoughts as you perceive this content? 3. Open up. Gather the fragments you want to see in a different light, and enter the selection of your choice. A random generator will create new constellations from your selected fragments. Drag and drop them however you like. Can you think of combinations you never would have considered? That's what the Attention Lab team is working on right now. The goal is to build infrastructures that legitimize and encourage a sustainable culture for attention. It's about designing space and time to explore, observe and strengthen the fruits of your own attention, rather than dissolving it in the fleeting nature of today's digital hyperspace.
How much time do we have, See? Do you know?
Probably very little. "30 seconds, something like this.
Can you say maybe if people need a glass of water or something, you can get it now.
Shadow's on now, so we've got 30 seconds.
Lovely.
It's just like a big countdown.
I feel like we're sort of hiding out in the cubby at the moment or something.
Here we go. We are on. We are live. and welcome. I hope everyone can see this screen. Welcome to this workshop called Writing on Air. I'm Zinnia Vrugden-Hill, and my co-host Michael Boykowski is joining us from Melbourne, Australia. So thank you all for joining, and I'll just give a brief introduction of the workshop and the project that this is kind of part of. So this workshop is part of the collaborative project Writing on Air, which is based on the creation of non-speculative narratives developed out of themes surrounding territory, control, security, and the intangible structures that shape and are shaped by these fields. The project draws on the respective research practices of myself, Zinnia, and of Michael, exploring fiction as a means of mediating a more contextualized understanding of design in the world around us.
So as we should be doing within these workshop environments, I just wanted to say hi and to ask if everybody can introduce themselves, maybe starting with Robot, with our friend the Robot. So who are you and where are you?
Hello, my name is Pete. I'm friends with Michael and Z. We both, I guess we all went to Design Academy. I'm from a slightly different department. I'm currently in Eindhoven.
Thanks.
A very great day in Eindhoven.
Oh yeah, it's very wet and rainy in Melbourne and dark, in case anyone wanted to know. Esteban, we know each other well. Do you want to introduce yourself and tell us where you are?
Hi, I'm Esteban. I studied with Sinai and Michael as well in the department before it turned into Critical Inquiry Lab. And with Michael as well in curating and writing, actually. And I'm based in Dordrecht in the Netherlands.
Thanks. And Hamish, are you able to let us know who you are and where you are?
Yeah, hi, I'm Hamish. I'm from Melbourne as well. I studied with Z. We studied industrial design at RMIT together.
I think we were expecting one more person to join us, but maybe we'll see if they turn up or not. But I think this is our group for now, unless somebody else joins us along the way.
And we should also say we've constructed this workshop in such a way that if you are watching the live stream and aren't part of the Zoom call, you're still able to follow along. So if you're interested, please do. So now we'll run through the idea of this workshop. So this workshop starts with a series of prompts, which will go on to generate fragments of text. And the idea is that we're not working towards something conclusive with this process, but rather towards a beginning. So what do we mean by a prompt? Because I think that's probably important to qualify. In this particular case, it's something to unstick, to reorient and kind of inspire a bit of movement in writing, something to kind of shuffle things around, something to spur insight. But most of all, it's a bit of a provocation for our own thinking and way of approaching things.
So themes that we've been writing around between the two of us for now, but obviously in this workshop, we're opening this up a bit more to you guys as well. And this is a good sort of starting point or prompt in itself, is that we've been writing around themes of borders and security and scales of control. And that's where we're sort of positioning the workshop today. What we would like to invite you to do, if you can, is to open up some sort of writing document so that you can write along with us. Whichever is your most comfortable type of writing document, if it's Google Drive or if it's literally like Word or Pages or something like that. Yeah, if you could open that up and you'll be able to follow along with us as we also write.
If everyone's set up, Yeah, we have about 2 minutes kind of allowed per prompt. But of course, please feel free to take more or less time on each of them as you require. And yeah, kind of as Michael said, we will also be working with you through this as we run this workshop. So anyway, we can get started. So let's begin.
And please feel free to interject at any point as well.
Discuss. So the first prompt is draw a line on the page, please. It probably doesn't require 2 minutes. So this is a border. So the first writing prompt is, what kind of a border is it? So I'm going to set a timer for 2 minutes.
My spelling, as usual, is actually not so bad. That's surprising.
My keys are really loud.
Oh, I can't hear them.
Okay, good.
But I would be excited if I could. I can't hear anything. This is going to be a very quiet activity, I think. Feel free to read your text out. Sometimes I feel like reading out text as I'm writing it is helpful, but that could also be distracting, I guess, if you're someone that needs to concentrate while you're writing.
Harsh. Okay, a few more seconds and then we move on to the next one. All right. Throughout this text, you can also see that we've inserted some quotes, some theoretical quotes, so feel free to read those. I'm not going to read it out or anything, but they're there if you're interested or want to note down a reference. So the next quote, or next prompt rather, is describe this border that you're writing about. What's there? What kind of boundary is it? What is it made of? And this can kind of all be one prompt.
I'm actually going to borrow from the previous bit of text I wrote. Is that cheating? I'm not sure.
No, do what you need to do. Set a timer for this one. Let's give it
Oh, yes.
because it's got quite a few different questions in there.
If anyone feels stuck or not sure what to write to, let us know and we can help with that somehow. I'm finding myself just writing about our workshop and what's going on, which is quite strange. I did not think this would happen. And I really want to read what Z is writing, but I'm too scared to look away from my own text.
Have to scroll down, Michael.
No, go. We're both like scrolling at different times. It's,
okay.
This is very interesting because we're all in our own documents, but except for us.
All right. Next prompt. This time I'm going to set a timer. How are you moving?
How are you moving? Gosh, that's a tricky one.
Are you moving at all?
Well, that's the question, isn't it? I'm going for a high point Scrabble word. And now I don't know what to do with it. It's just a really nice word, but I don't know if it's helping me right now. I think I'm stuck in the land of binaries and this and that.
Duality instead, if that breaks you out of it.
Oh, what was that?
Go for duality instead of dichotomy. That'll break you out of binaries.
The duality of the dichotomy is a binary. No.
All right. Next prompt. Is there a beginning? Is there an approach?
I feel like some of this that I'm writing, I will be cringing at when we have to read it back. But yeah, I'm hoping that we can all feel cozy and comfortable enough to not worry about it too much.
Look how profound. Look how profound this is.
Shouldn't be scared of profanity. Well, profanity? That's not the right word, is it? I don't think we should be scared to be profound if it's something we're drawn towards. But we can also laugh at it if we need to.
Joy of doing this on a computer is self-editing.
I did notice the Google Docs have a new, let me suggest lots of things for you sort of setting, which is quite bizarre. Is there an approach? Now, when I wrote this question, I was thinking of actually physically walking up and approaching something rather than, but I guess it's one of those questions that has multiple ways to read it.
In a little while, about 20 seconds, we can move on to the next one. All right, when you're ready, next prompt is it safe to cross? All right. The next prompt is, where does panic sit? Or is there panic at all?
I just realized I keep jumping in before you, Z. I'm going to go behind you this time.
the next question is, are you alone? Ooh. Oh, wrong thing.
Just happens.
It's meant for highlighting instead of text color.
Yeah, that sounds nice. You could do that if you want.
It's a bit bold.
I'm getting a bit bored of being blue.
Just change.
How truthful or how fictional should I be? That's a question.
All right. Next quote. How does the air feel?
Are we almost at the end, do you think?
We are almost at the end. This is the second last prompt.
Okay. I hope people are feeling like they've been able to keep up. How does the air feel? All I can think of is rain right now. I'm sure Hamish probably feels the same.
Another few seconds and then we'll do the last one. So the last prompt is, what is under your feet?
See, an honest response is sort of oatmeal-y coloured carpet, but that's not very interesting.
Okay. Last minute, and then we have 10 minutes left until we need to wrap up.
Cool. I wonder if this stage, if anybody wanted to add any prompts. If you do want to add any, just add them in the chat and we'll copy and paste them into the document.
Mm. And if not, would anyone like to share their text?
I think you or I might have to go first.
Would you like to go, Michael?
Would I like? Oh, yeah, now I've dubbed myself in, huh?
You have. Well done.
I will be the brave first brave person to read it out, and then hopefully you guys will feel a little more comfortable after you've heard how terrible this sounds.
Beginning.
Yes, I don't know if I was consistent with my highlighting, so bear with me. So after our line that we drew, this is a border. This line also acts as a bridge. It marks a still point in the duration of the workshop, but also provides a portal through to another portion of the workshop. It's very literal. Suddenly the solid line becomes malleable. So I was kind of starting to think that even though we've drawn a line, it's also a bridge, which means suddenly it's a broken line. A field of text. Oh, so what's on the other side of the line? A field of text hidden from view, but being written and evolved by participants who are with us, but writing in seclusion. Two of us write in Melbourne where it's raining, rain providing another type of border or boundary. What type of border or boundary is this? Well, a wet one. What's it made of? It's made of rain. How am I moving? I'm static, or I started to talk in terms of us rather than me, which is strange. Static in our relationship to the screens and pages we have before us, but this is momentary. So moving with the screen, which feels like not moving at all. Is there a beginning? This border begins with a set time and persists for a set duration. We have set this duration, but this is also malleable. We can bend time by altering the duration. Time across time zones that shift to save daylight. Is there an approach? You approach this boundary or borderline up the stairway, past the laundry, through a sliding door, and you'll see a modest blue chair with a laptop on a stand, and that's the approach. Is it safe to cross? The crossing has occurred without any regard for safety. Was it safe? What could the repercussions be? If we keep moving, can we avoid them or outrun them? Reaching out through browsers and similar portals is a negotiation, but it feels cozy and safe. Where does panic sit? This is a strange one. Panic comes as a low hum and unsettling, a feeling of something out of place, or the relationship to something having shifted. Slow panic, fast panic. I just really sort of felt like, oh my God, I need to position myself in relationship to panic, and I panicked. Are you alone? Not within this document, and not within this housing estate, and not within the city, not within state boundary lines, not within oceanic borders, not within this continental place. And I just sort of felt like, not alone, not ever. How does the air feel? It feels thick with rain, full, packed, jammed, heavy, and being driven into the ground. What's under my feet, or what's under the feet? The living room, the neighbor's bedroom, the neighbor's living room, the garden, the understory in the garden, the car park, the river that used to flow through this part of the city, which is now buried under tarmac.
Mm.
And that is the end.
Nice.
It's a good start, which is the point.
That's the point.
Yeah.
Would anyone else like to share? We've got a few minutes left. Otherwise, I can read mine if that's necessary.
It is necessary.
I can share.
Thank you, Pete.
I can share with you how it looks like. I actually haven't written in pen and paper for a long time. So I also find this sort of.
Oh, wow. I thought that's what you were doing. That's really exciting.
I just haven't done this for so long. It's actually quite relieving to just write.
That's nice.
It's a nice form.
But I'll share some visual rather than text. Thank you.
Okay, I can very quickly read mine, or we can have a chat if anything came out of this for anyone in the last 5 minutes. Up to you guys.
I think you should read yours, unless Esteban or Hamish would like to jump in.
All right, here we go. Feel free to jump in. This is a light border, somewhat gossamer, but stretched outwards in front of me. It is taller than I am and carries on beneath my feet, translucent, almost pearlescent, like the skin of a bubble. Right now it is solidified by sound, a variation of controlled voices, authority passed across and through radio waves. It slides around, beneath, all-encompassing yet permeable. It is a space in between, drawn like a wire. Words shape it, lending it depth and form. Right now, moving is effortless, a full momentum driven by engine and oil, tailwind and wing. There is always a beginning. There is time and space shifting over and around. This is where it got a bit too profound. But there is also a bluntness, a solidity and massive scale. You have to let someone know you're there. Knock politely, listen for a response. There are a few rules to keep in mind. A provision of access is documentation. I've often wondered at the authority given by a piece of paper, a stamp, a signature, validation of identity. It's safe as long as you sit in your seat. If anywhere panic rests in the gut, again, maybe this wasn't a great prompt, an unfamiliar zone, an estranged interior. It sits between the liver and intestine, sends messages upwards too. There are others around me also seated within the structures of this thing. The windows provide views of cities and seas, quietly observed, considered, and passed over. The air feels stale on my face, my wrists. Occasionally it's stifling, tired. Sometimes there's not enough of it. Under my feet is an aluminium underbelly, caging or cradling freight and bags. Beneath that is a full 40,000 feet of air. That's it.
Thank you.
So.
How much time do we have left?
I think we only have a few minutes.
I would really like to hear from Esteban or Hamish, but I understand if you're feeling bashful. Do either of you feel like sharing?
I can read.
Sure.
I can read. This is an imagined border, a self-imposed border. I can change it or I cannot change it. I can shift it down my page or have it control and confine the characters on my screen. I can choose to accept its diagonal state on my page, or I can reconfigure it to whatever I please. It is a border in my head. The border is thin and blue. It slopes downwards from left to right, not meeting the margins on either edge of the page. It floats between characters. I am moving always, as is the border. My eyes dart from fingertips to flashing cursor and back. My hands shift across the black plastic on my lap and change the black plastic into language and meaning, from one side of the border to now. The beginning is a time and a place, a top and a stopwatch, an alarm and a cursor. There is no approach to the border. There can't be. It demands space on the page. The computer doesn't know what to do with such an awful, irregular thing, and so it demands space, and the border takes it. The space then becomes the border too, just like the fence becomes part of the field it stands in. It is not safe to cross. It cannot be crossed. It demands separation and distance. It demands to divide the characters in the binary that scrolls down the neon, and the characters listen. There is panic in the space, perhaps. The space comes from panic of an irregular shape, a diagonal slash across a page of columns and rows. Am I alone? I am typing alone to the sound of many others. How does the air feel? The kind of cold air, the air is cold, the kind of cold air that exists only in a big house with a few objects, air that is too big for the people who are too small for the space. And what is under your feet? Woven nylon and hours of labor, of grown and dried and cut timber, of soil tilled and watered, of many things dead and alive and unseen.
Beautiful.
Yeah, thank you. That was actually really, like, I feel like that was way more cohesive than what I ended up with.
Thank you for sharing. Esteban, I'm sorry, I think we probably need to wrap this up now. But thank you so much for joining, and we hope this kind of gave you something to think about or potentially something to write about. And if you're happy to potentially share what you've written in some way, you can send it to Michael, all right? And maybe we can publish it somewhere if you're comfortable with that. But we'll see how we go.
I'm going to say, Esteban, please send me anything that you've written if you feel like you want to, because I would be super interested to read it.
Mm-hmm.
And also to see what you thought of our text today.
All right. Thank you everyone so much for joining. And we will talk to you soon.
Oh, there's the signal.
Bye.
Hellfire missile launched off a US military drone in the Middle East is fired by the push of a button. A push from inside a container on US soil on the other side of the globe. Through fiber optic cables, the information to fire, transformed into a signal, is carried in a split second across the ocean to reach one of the main data relay stations, Ramstein Air Base in Germany. Amplified, the signal is sent over 16,000 kilometers away from Earth to reach the geostationary orbit. The satellite infrastructure becomes the bridge between operator in the US and aircraft in the Middle East. The image of the missile impact will be visible on the screen in the container back in the US with a delay of 3 to 5 seconds. In the combat with military drones, surveilling and killing opponents across the globe in real time becomes a matter of data transfer speed. Watching from above does not just depend on the size of the scope, but on image quality and pixels. Striking power not just on the size of a missile, but on bandwidth and low latency. When drone signals carrying information to kill share their infrastructure with the one we use to download, stream, watch television and listening to radio, doesn't proximity to the military realm become just a matter of a frequency in the air around us?
Okay. I think there's something to do with it.
So now mute yourself, sir.
Ooh, smile. Remember the smile.
You can feel what's an
restart.
I haven't finished.
I enjoyed it.
And you're just gonna restart and turn it off and on again. Okay. Uf, qué miedo.
Welcome to Moving in Stasis. Together with Design Academy and Gallery 3 by You, 60 master graduate students from Design Academy from 2020 are exhibiting their graduation works at Het Nieuwe Instituut in Rotterdam. Due to the pandemic, these works have been in storage until this moment, waiting to go on display. My name is Charlie Bludel. I'm one of the graduate students and I'm part of the curatorial team. And today I'm joined by Guus Beumer, director of the Nieuwe Instituut, to take a little tour through the graduation show. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for inviting me, Charlie.
As you know, Moving in Stasis is a hybrid. It's both a digital exhibition and a public program. In a sense, we are acting out a backward exhibition. It is an exhibition of its own making. It is a place of production, a place of performativity, a place of politics, and a place, of course, of people. Moving in Stasis has been taking place in 3 acts. Firstly, the installation. Secondly, the production. And thirdly, the public program, which is being live streamed right now from Gallery 3 at the Nieuwe Instituut in Rotterdam. This exhibition has been a huge collaborative effort of basically all of the 60 participants of the exhibition. We started it off with the reflection of our current conditions of working. Typically, you produce a work in a place that is yours, your studio, your workshop, to show it in a place that is for everybody, the exhibition, the museum. Now, as everybody is elsewhere but in physical space, we move into this space to use it as ours and produce our work. This exhibition reflects on the making of exhibitions in pandemic times, which have forced the representational aspect of exhibitions to shift away from a physical space of a gallery and into the digital space of an online gallery, which means the idea of a physical exhibition space has become a mere storage or a set or an infrastructure. Okay, the first work we're going to see is by Megan. Hi Megan.
Hi Megan.
Do you want to tell us about your work?
Yeah, so my project is this work of body, this body of work. It's the graduation project from Design Academy, and I was really interested in repetition and how by performing these acts of repetition it could be an act of sabotage of time. So I call what I do non-productive productivity, and it's really inspired by the factory workers who would throw a part into the machine in order to sort of gain time back for themselves. And in a way I'm trying to gain time from the rigors of productivity through being overly productive.
Hey, and why do you consider repetition as sabotage?
I think for me repetition is a way that I can occupy time, so repetition is my tool, I would say.
And then you turn that into an act of sabotage?
Yeah. So the continual, because repetition, if you do it on a small scale, you can have the repetition of brushing your teeth every day you brush your teeth, it's a repetition. But when you sort of extend a repetition over a lot of repetition over a longer period of time, it becomes kind of absurd. So when you repeat a word so many times it loses its meaning. That's kind of the way I think about it. So if I did this much repetition of this net, it would be okay, cool. But when you see it on such a large scale, suddenly you have an opportunity to give meaning to it where it maybe wasn't before.
So the next project we're gonna see is Bianca's Bump Galaxy, but first of all we're gonna see a trailer of the project.
So we're stepping from this physical exhibition into a different realm.
Absolutely.
2020 has been a strange year. The uncertainty that's come with it, amplifying feelings of stress, anxiety, depression, loneliness. While in quarantine, I built Bump Galaxy, a virtual world and community for mental health. In it, players can visit several different care commons, a forest for breathing meditations, sand dunes where you can reflect on your dreams, a snowfield and underwater temple designed for hypnotic imaginings. In Bump Galaxy, players can meet different mental health professionals from around the world. Imagine a joint therapy session with a relationship counselor from Sweden and a hypnotherapist in Japan. Imagine participating in a collective sound bath in the rainforest by one of your favorite DJs. My name is Bianca Carage. I'm a social designer and natural healer. As someone who does energy work and guided meditations, I've always wanted to work with a psychotherapist to give clients the care I wasn't qualified to provide. What if different health professionals collaborated, supplementing conventional methods with alternative therapies to provide more personalized, holistic healthcare experiences in a game world that actually meets the level of intimacy many of us crave, that conventional telehealth platforms lack? So what does it mean to bump into each other, actually? To gently collide, in surprising and meaningful ways pregnant with possibility. Let's build a world where caring for each other means playing together, because we are living in a game world, one in which we can modify the code if we like.
Hi Bianca, we've just seen your trailer. Do you want to tell us a bit more about your project?
Yeah, sure. So obviously you've seen the trailer. It's this virtual world for mental health care that over the course of the pandemic, I prototyped in Minecraft. When you think virtual therapy, teletherapy, you think about video calls, phone calls,
yes,
because that was what it was existing. But then I think there's so much possibility to do that inside a game. What we designed, I say we because I developed it not by myself, but really it was about designing the environment, modifying the mechanics and the landscape to facilitate therapy in such a way that we're not just talking about our problems and like our problems and thoughts and stuff, but we're actually we want to actually help people or provide these real new physiological experiences of safety and social support through play. For example, over the course of confinement, met several care practitioners who were telling me, actually it doesn't make sense for us to pay rent for our physical clinics anymore because we can't see our clients face to face. And I'd be like, oh, well, I have this Minecraft server, maybe you want to come see it and let's see how your practice can be possible in this space. And so from there, we took a very collaborative and participatory approach. I wasn't really inviting them to co-work with me. I was essentially inviting them to play with me because, the context of Minecraft is,
it's play and not work.
It's play.
Yeah. I read that you were next to a designer, also a natural healer.
Right.
And I thought, okay, the notion of natural healer, for me at least, could be read as somebody who is also questioning certain forms of classifications and certain notions of authority or...
I realized throughout working on this that my role in virtual care wasn't as a healer per se, but just as a mediator between other practitioners with each other or player and practitioner. And
okay, so through the act of understanding the potential of the game, you also transformed not only through the toolbox which suddenly became available, but also by introducing a space in which you became fundamentally a mediator and not a designer nor a healer.
And sometimes care receiver. Yesterday, early this morning, I did a workshop with these two drama therapists in New York. In the workshop, of course, I built the space, but it was really for them to bring their practice to life in this virtual space. So we did a demo because we wanted people to see how game world drama therapy works. So we did a demo, and for me, I'm very comfortable just being the client, let's say. And so from healer to player / mediator to even the care receiver.
In our first little conversation we had together, you mentioned the notion of vulnerability, and I thought, vulnerability also, presupposes something, which is definitely, you could say, ingrained into your project. I'm not sure if it's also ingrained in the representation of your project.
Yeah, not really. I mean, there's a sense of it in the sense that for some people, at least that I've spoken to, being represented as an avatar instead of a real person, both allows them to be more vulnerable because they're more comfortable maybe not being seen. But allows them to be more vulnerable by removing that vulnerability.
Thank you very much.
So the next work that we're seeing is Pete's work. Do you want to give us a quick introduction?
Yes, definitely. So the work itself is called The Boring Event in Between. It really started off as when I was in Eindhoven, particularly. Coming to Eindhoven, a city of innovation, going to DAE, but also learning about Dutch design beforehand, before coming to Netherlands, and then walking past all the windows of people's houses and never really see the Dutch design that I come to know as Dutch design. All you see is really sort of cheap IKEA furnitures and stuff like that, which I find it quite fascinating on its own. Like sort of the idea of Dutch design really doesn't really trickle down to the sort of democraticness of it. And then that got me into sort of a series of investigation about why that is. And then with Eindhoven being the base as well, it's a very expat culture, it's a very expat city, where I guess IKEA furniture becomes a quick solution for a lot of the things. And that got me really thinking about sort of, because obviously I'm very interested in objects and how they're being classified, collected, but also re-represented. And in a lot of ways how they also, we were talking about sort of museum being a place that makes meaning. And to me, it does that, it makes meaning, but at the same time it changes the way that we also engage the world as well. So I being a person who grew up in Hong Kong, lived in Vancouver, moved to Netherlands, have lived through many different cultures, and going to a museum, I will never be able to find something that sort of fit. So therefore, I sort of always wonder if there's a way sort of to capture this very transient, very nomadic style of life. And then sort of IKEA come back to me in the sense that they were
haunted you.
Exactly, they were sort of designed to be universal to begin with. It has its own problematic, but let's not talk about that. But in a very roundabout way, they also come to represent this very transient way of living, a very fluid way of living. So this project is the project that is sort of presented here. Is a series of photographs of IKEA objects staged in their sort of non-performative stage in a domestic environment usually, or at IKEA, of course. The material that I use to sort of build the sculptures are also from second-hand marketplace. So I sort of go around Eindhoven and collect different sort of IKEA furniture from people. While I do that, I also usually collect their stories as well. So I have sort of 20 to 30 pages of the story that I don't actually use. And they sort of slowly build up this archive of a very transient life. And the idea to sort of re-represent these images in an archival crate is also to sort of, I guess, questions or use it as a probe, use it as I guess an instrument to questions whether you can properly archive them, because of course you can't. That's the thing. Once you put them into your archive, you put a frame around it, and that loses the meaning of the transientness anymore. And which is why the decision of not showing the physical object, but just the image of the object, is very important.
And why is it important?
It's important to not necessarily actually archive them, but more like, I guess, it's the question of archiving itself. I think earlier we were talking about ownership. So it's the same thing as about if you cannot never own something, then it's about shifting the idea of ownership to more of a relations. So I wonder if archiving is also the same thing. in the case of IKEA, for example, I wonder, if in museums we've seen multiple exhibitions about IKEA, for sure. It's always celebrate the designers who design the objects, less about the people that uses them. But in my case, I wonder if, the resilience of people who move around and uses these objects, it's through the usage of the object themselves that actually give the meaning, not necessarily the designers. So I wonder if that could be celebrated in some way.
Next to the fact that it's definitely almost a kind of a celebration of transient life through IKEA, it's also an attempt to think about how you can archive transient life, huh? But you do that through a very particular act, because it's of course not the IKEA object as a whole which you're presenting, but you're presenting. You could say the elements through which IKEA builds up its objects, and then you and the act of design is in repurposing them and turning them into, you could say, abstract manifestations of IKEA ingredients.
Yes,
huh?
definitely.
Thank you very much, Pete. Okay, Francois. First, I have to congratulate you with the fact that you got your exam.
Thank you. It's never too late.
I understand the video is a little bit somewhere else, and I'm not sure, but in the introduction, people said to me that this was in a way a continuation of your project. Could you tell me more about it?
Yeah, two things or a few reasons why you continue my project, and as I explained, maybe I can unpack slowly. Here we are in this exhibition called Moving in Stasis, which was organized by basically all of us, or some of us. And the concept was to kind of reopen our initial graduation project from last year, and also finishing by the beginning, basically the last days, which we have now at the opening of the show. And I was very inspired by that. I thought, wow, that's cool, like taking something backwards as a kind of a new beginning again. So I took the opportunity to kind of revisit my graduation project. And so I'm just opening this object, and I can explain what they are soon. Yes.
So in fact, this has also become a re-exhibition or something for you.
For me, yes.
Yeah.
I should explain maybe briefly what my graduation project was about, and to explain what this project is. So my graduation project was basically about the life of object, the spirit of object. It was an animation movie where I decided to basically use objects as actors, to animate movies, to bring them to life, literally use animation as a medium of almost animism. But the basic premise was to understand how objects, things have gained consciousness or agency. And as a student, I struggled a lot to understand that, to study that. And I thought, what if I do that through kind of what I know, the history of making, and looking at objects, understanding how objects are made, and how in the process of being made, they gain their own consciousness, agency, spirit. On the day we made molds, we basically starting to have tools to give shape to an abstract thought.
Yeah.
And basically molds were kind of like the first step, a huge step in cognition, in consciousness, in giving shape to abstraction. And from the day we made molds, we also use an object to make objects, and more objects to make objects, to make objects, to make objects, etc. And from that day, basically objects became more and more complex, technical, but also escaped us, and entered this kind of like parallel world, parallel universe, with their own consciousness, not fully belonging to us. That's kind of the story of the movie. Of course, it sounds a little abstract, but the movie is very playful. The movie is a real story.
Yeah. To me, it's very interesting that, of course, the story of meaning is for you very much related to the story of making.
For me, yes, indeed.
Yeah.
Because when we make objects, of course we make things, but we create meaning, but we also try to access an invisible world, but actually by making physical, tangible things, we're also trying to unravel the intangible, the invisible. This is what I've always tried to explore, to express.
Yeah,
because I was haunted or visited
revisited by migration project. On the exhibition here kind of prompted this, and I was saying, oh wow, I was kind of thinking of the main character of my story, my movie, the mold, and I was, what if I do something about it? What if I make a mold, or a series of molds, more like, we see the idea of a mold, but also the mold of an idea, quite literally. So this is what I did. That is more like an exercise. No, I don't know if I answer your question, but this is how I arrived here, and this is what I'm showing today. Now, I don't know again if I answer your question properly, but
no, but it at least to me it has a kind of intrinsic logic, you know.
Yes.
The moment you accept the fact that you know that you need to build up a type of relationship between you and your tools, you could say, you know, then of course the idea of the tools becomes quite fundamental, I would say. Yeah?
Indeed, indeed, yes, very much so. And but also, I think for me it's also like. In some way also expanding on what we have discussed actually together as a group, Charlie there, 2 years ago now, I forgot, like a while ago, but it was a great project where we basically thought of different ways of contextualizing or expanding the idea of objects or products. You know, remember we had this idea of product as basically here it's product, it's the final thing defined, and we have a prototype which is conceiving, exploring something which we can define. On the idea, I would say, of probe as well, which is actually an object, an instrument to conceive of something which we don't know about. And it was nice, it was in the concept mostly of post-humanism on Neuhaus, trying to basically find tools to appreciate, measure the non-human or more than human element. And for me, it was, in some ways, it was great, but it was not exactly where I was, and still not where I am. However, this helped me to think about it, and I feel like this object, like these molds, are not project, prototype, or are not product or prototype or probe. They are actually what I would call project almost. They help me to project, to express something else. And this, for me, this is what objects do. They can actually express, they project the invisible from the visible, or vice versa. They absorb the invisible in the visible.
I think in a way I'm touched by your exercise and the fact that, as you say, you know, you wanted to go back to the act of making, you know, and you could say also a kind of revalidation of the tools which were once available in order to make, and then you came in, you know, at this very moment that the unique turned into the industrial, you could say, or through at least to an idea of production through the mold, and that created this strange little, you could say, problematic distance, but also metaphysical distance.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
And this you wanted to address much more than the fact that, or at least through making, instead of through thinking. So it's beautiful.
So we've seen only a small snippet of the exhibition, but still quite a lot. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Well, I feel totally honored. I mean, you already made sure that I became curious by, you know, transforming from the what to the how, and then telling me that you used this period to rethink what you already had thought about. So I was already a little bit, what am I going to say? But I'm totally bedazzled. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you very much.
Hello? Hello? Hi? But I can't hear you. Could it...
I know.
No, Marta.
Hola.
Bye. Okay.
Yeah. Should do gallery view?
Yeah. And, oh yeah.
British crew. Oh, sorry, no, Italian. It's got the British. It's got a British.
Marta was there.
Good English. Crew.
You can see we can have
Marta, are you alone where you are?
Yeah.
Yeah, you are talking.
No, because it does like.
Turn it up, baby.
Well, okay.
Yeah.
So, what
to say? You've
What
been
to say?
practicing all these days.
Yeah.
In wrap-ups and
in
walking into
I can rap.
not up.
No, I don't know. That's a lot of pressure. I think everyone is feeling really exhausted. I guess. I bet.
Yeah.
But still, this is not over. Let's remember, tomorrow we have to build down the whole space, right, Helen? Helen is saying yes.
Yeah.
So if you're in Rotterdam and you wanna come to help us build down 68 shelves, would be super cool.
Kind of the last chance to visit the exhibition.
Also,
probably
yeah.
the only chance to visit the exhibition, like coming in as a as a builder.
And apart from that, public program is over, so this is our goodbye. But then we're gonna still be there. We're gonna make a publication in the coming months.
Yeah.
We're gonna update our website together with the projects that we all presented in the public program. And they're going to be polished, they're going to be beautiful, and yes, all of this is going to continue being shared through Muin and Stasis, and what else? I don't know what to say.
Just to keep following and to see what's gonna happen mainly on the website. Yeah, as this archive platform. And
what do you say? See?
Maybe the girls, like the busy ones, never not working.
You want to say something? Sí. Venga, I mute.
There's a lot of background noise here, but I think I just want to say I feel really proud of what we've done. So thank you to everyone who's really been working on the public program the last few days. Helen's sewing in the background here. But I think it's been amazing, and I hope whoever's watching has gotten something out of it too, or whoever's participated. So yeah, anyway, I should go on mute again. There's screaming children in the background.
I think that's it. I think that's it.
Thank you to everyone.
Thank you everyone that joined. Thank you everyone that participated. Thank you to our viewers. And that's it. Goodbye.